So good morning. Welcome to Conversations Under Insulation. My name is Praful from CorrosionRADAR, and I'm here to welcome Theo Knijff. Welcome to the show, and you have been having a vast 35 years of experience in asset integrity. Can you please introduce yourself again?
I have my own company. It's called Knijff Asset Integrity Consultancy. Before that, I worked 36 years for Dow. Located in the Netherlands, but the last 15, 20 years, I was responsible for asset integrity within the hydrocarbon business.
And you have been a champion of adopting CUI monitoring technologies and predictive technologies. You did a pilot of CUI monitoring probably 5-6 years back. And now looking forward, now it's been adopted widely, and you have kind of made standards around it to what type of assets to be used. So going back 5-6 years, why CUI monitoring needs to be used as a viable alternative?
Basically, the journey started in 2009 due to a severe process safety incident where, let's say, in the piping system in cyclic service had a catastrophic failure. So that was the start. Of course, I mean, you were following all the guidance, all the industry standards, etc., etc., etc. But there we found out we were limited in understanding the behavior of CUI. Cyclic, yes, but we were not aware that cyclic can be that severe condition. We put a lot of emphasis on CUI, but unfortunately, we also found out that the behavior of CUI is very unpredictable. So we have to change our mindset. We have to be more innovative on efficiency, but also on predictability. If you know the location, you go to it, you repair, and that's it. Throughout the industry, we are not there. So sensor monitoring can be an option. If you monitor your equipment the way it should be, means that you will have the when, also the where. So that's why we started to validate CorrosionRADAR monitoring systems.
Were there any surprises to you that it detected something which you did not know earlier, like susceptible locations?
Yes. So in a nutshell, we started, I think, 5-6 years ago. I mean, what we wanted was a corrosion sensor. So we really are interested in the corrosion rate that is going on at that specific location, and we wanted to have a moisture sensor. Moisture is more indirect. There is no CUI without, let's say, water. So that means that if there is moisture, means that there is a higher susceptibility for CUI. Corrosion rate, it predicts lifetime. You can calculate lifetime. So first step is validation. Do those sensors work? The answer was yes. That was 6 years ago. After that, we wanted to do field tests. So we know that we were not able to predict CUI on our highest susceptible equipment, being the dryers, that well. We've had throughout the business surprises. We don't like surprises. Nobody likes surprises. So we initiated the project to install, let's say, moisture and corrosion sensors on that highly susceptible equipment, being the dryers. So what we monitored on some dryers, we've seen unexpected moisture, means that your insulation is getting wet. And after that, you can take the action. Do we want to repair it now, or do we want to wait until the next inspection? Corrosion sensors, yes. We've seen corrosion at several locations on several dryers. You don't like it, but somewhat inspected. We also installed a system on piping operating in cyclic service. QA, QC on that installation, on insulation, on aluminium sheeting, on the coating, was extremely well. And we have seen, after a couple of months, already moisture getting in. And after 6 months, we've seen that corrosion was occurring. So that was completely unexpected. So after 6 months, we decided to remove insulation at some of those locations and to perform a visual check. And to our surprise, we've seen water droplets. So that was a confirmation, yes, water ingress was there, but also the coating was already somewhat degraded. You've seen some minor cracks, but rust was also coming through. It was brown. So that means that, yeah, we confirmed corrosion sensor is doing what it should do, moisture sensor is doing what it should do, and unexpectedly fast within 6 months. So again, that system is in very severe cyclic service. So yeah, that was driving us to develop the standard that on systems like this we must monitor.
So that's interesting. Very good to hear that. Obviously the sensor systems are placed, but you started to learn more about the asset behavior itself, which are more of a assumption at that point that cyclical service and that kind of an asset are severe CUI. But then you verified it with the new sensor data which is coming out, and but unexpectedly, even if the insulation is well, you saw water going in or condensation happening inside. I'm happy to see that it's adding to the knowledge base of the industry that sensor systems and CUI monitoring systems are showing things which were not seen before or not known before. That okay, insulation, even if it's perfect, CUI can happen. And within 6 months, the coatings can degrade, like cracks can form, even if, especially in cyclical service. Which one do you rate higher? So you have corrosion sensors, which is wire sensors, and moisture sensors, again, water detections, and they are combined and put it under the insulation. And obviously, combination of that gives CUI risk as well because coatings are incorporated into CUI risk. So 3 outputs. Which ones do you see most valuable and why?
It depends on the service. It's, let's say, if you're talking about corrosion, wired sensors, moisture wired sensors, you can really install them to prevent, let's say, or minimize the risk on process safety incidents. So that's why we want to install them on dryers operating, for instance, in cyclic service. A leakage will result in a release of ethylene at high pressure, 30 bars. So you don't want to do that. Also, I mean, to save money, I mean, let's say inspection, especially on large columns, can be very costly if you have to inspect certain suspect areas and you don't have the ladders and platforms to that location. You can easily spend 100, 200, 300, 400,000 euros, dollars. So over the asset life cycle, it can be much, much, much cheaper to install those wired sensors. Moisture spot sensors will tell you is there water, yes or no, and then you still have to decide. You still have to execute your regular inspection, condition-based, RBI-based. So it will give you some extra information, but it will not tell you anything about corrosion. So the value seems to me somewhat limited. And also, if your plant is, for instance, 50 years old, you know that you do have a lot of degraded insulation. So you know it's wet, there is moisture in. So why should you put a moisture sensor?
Do you have a preference for monitoring in cold duty assets or hot duty assets or cyclical?
I'm strong in favor of putting it in equipment that operates in a cyclic service, intermittent service, because that equipment, CUI is not that easy to predict. You go, for instance, from minus 20 C to up to, let's say, 250, 300 C. So you go to the full, let's say, CUI temperature range. So I'm in strong favor of, looking at process safety. Second is costs. And there, let's say, I would say sweating service, where you just operate below dew point, you're also operating more severe conditions.
Right.
And for the rest, let's say I'm more looking at consequence of failure than, let's say, is it in cold or hot service?
And another question comes to my mind is about coating. So Coatings are there. There are better coatings, there are worse coatings, temperature aspects on the coatings, but coatings are there, and industry is using coating as a mitigation for CUI.
Yeah.
Will you use monitoring even when the coating is there?
Yes. It's let's say of course you need to understand your coating condition. So you must inspect to understand that, also your insulation condition. The vision is that you use your monitoring system as your inspection for your inspection strategy. So that means that once monitoring is installed, you don't need to inspect, or you inspect with a very limited scope, let's say 5 or 10% from what you normally inspect. So that means that you can leave your insulation as is. You don't need to spend money on working at height. You don't need to destroy your insulation while removing it and putting it back. And especially when you're talking about closed cell structured insulation with vapor barriers, I mean, if you have to remove it, you destroy your insulation at that location for sure.
Right. So you will continue to use monitoring even above the coatings. I want to understand or hear from you about your experience with good coatings, like the guidelines. Thermally sprayed aluminum is rated very high as a mitigation for CUI. And obviously, it's expensive. There are challenges in the field, but it's a good solution for CUI. And you have used monitoring even on the thermally sprayed aluminum coated assets. And what is the thought process on that?
Thermal spray aluminum is sometimes considered as the holy grail, and I can tell you it's not. I mean, if your QA/QC is not as good as it should be, you can even then have some degradation of thermal spray aluminum. But let's say it's one of the parameters to set your typically your inspection interval. But with monitoring, let's say you can simply follow that and continue to, let's say, monitor over your asset life. So that means that you do have the data that you don't need to do anything, just follow the guidance of your monitoring system, and maybe once or twice check the condition of your coating. And again, if you have applied thermal spray aluminum, your lifetime of equipment must be much higher. And if you don't have a monitoring system, you still must inspect every 5 years, every 10 years, remove 50% of your insulation, remove insulation at your susceptible locations. So again, with monitoring, it's 24/7 during asset life, and that will save a lot.
So monitoring, or say coatings, first of all, is a mitigation for extending the life, but still you have to inspect, and monitoring helps in the inspection optimization.
Yeah, and of course, for within risk-based inspection, you can get some credits if your coating system is considered as good, but again, it's limited.
So as a champion of CUI monitoring from the industry and adopting it, what do you wish to see in the next 5 to 10 years for the whole industry around CUI monitoring?
Let's say, I think that we need to develop industry standards, how to use, let's say, monitoring systems. I mean, my vision is that if you do have a validated monitoring system, after that, qualify it at your location and fully rely on it, 100%. Don't remove insulation, don't perform NDT, just rely on that monitoring system.
Thanks, Theo. We are on the mission for that, and hope in the next few years the industry widely, moves in that direction. And thanks for being a champion of that. Thanks for coming on this conversation on insulation, sharing your insights, Theo. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Bye.